What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush and Danny coming at you today. I almost said Bush coming at you solo. I've been doing so many solo videos. But what we're doing today is we're doing a Dynasty Decisions. It's week 14, random part in the NFL season. We decided to go through some of your guys' burning Dynasty questions. You guys know the drill by now if you've been fans of the channel for a while. You guys send us your trades, your teams. Should I rebuild? Should I contend? Should I trade this guy for that guy? Which direction should I go with my picks? Whatever your decisions are relating to Dynasty Fantasy Football, we will have you covered on this one. So please, if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, comment any of your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Danny, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And yeah, for those who are new to the channel, for those new subscribers, probably not even used to seeing my face because let's be honest here, with these last couple of weeks of school leading up to exams, I've been really busy on that front, but I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to talk Dynasty Decisions. Obviously, one of our favorite series to record, one of your guys' favorite series to digest, because at the end of the day here, we're trying to help you guys out as much as possible. And Dynasty never rests, baby. We're going to continue this from now. We're going to do this in the offseason. You're going to see maybe one or two of these a week. Honestly, this is one of our favorite series to record and put out on the YouTube channel. So hyped, ready to go, ready to talk some Dynasty.
For sure. So before we do that, got to hit the intro. Okay, so we're going to start it off with Pauly C NMJ 30s trade. I don't know if I said that right, but either way, we like to kick it off with a trade. Started off light before we get too into the muck on this one. But what this guy is basically asking, and I think this is a really fair trade for starters.
Very good trade.
I have no lenience one way or another, no conviction saying that this guy's this side's a slam dunk or whatever. But you guys should be able to see the trade on the screen right now. He'd be getting Jalen Waddle in exchange for Brandon Ayuk and A.J. Dillon. And the context of his team, I didn't want to list his entire team here, but basically it's a young team. He has 3 ones this year, 3 ones in 2023, has some cornerstone pieces to compete next year, though, because he could do, a quick turnaround because he has guys like Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins on IR. Also has Javonte Williams, who we expect to be very valuable this time next year. Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, so he has that quarterback core lockdown. Also has Zach Wilson, so he has 2 young quarterbacks there. Also some young receivers, including Ayuk, obviously, who he'd be trading away. And then at tight end, he has Andrews and Kittle as well. So, again, this is a quick turnaround type of situation. So,
yeah,
I don't mind going for Jalen Waddle in this situation because you have a very good young core. You still have 3 ones this year if you wanted to part with some of those for a veteran piece, maybe to make a championship push if you wanted to trade a 1 away to a rebuilding team for Alvin Kamara or something like that. Or just use those picks and draft, a running back, wide receiver, whatever you end up needing, maybe another quarterback. So what are your thoughts on this trade? We kind of talked about these players' values before we started recording this. Brandon Ayuk, we kind of saw as a late first round value at this point. Obviously, his value took a big hit this offseason or this season so far, even though he has been pretty solid still. Definitely not to the level we saw before. And then same goes for A.J. Dillon, kind of that early second, mid-second range.
Yeah, for sure. And I fully agree. I would rather have the Jalen Waddle side. Talking about contending, you're talking about rebuilding. I think Waddle fits both those buckets because, again, this is a super productive young player. I mean, he's still 23 years old. He's still the key weapon on that Miami Dolphins offense. And I don't think that's going to change for much time, especially considering the fact that either Tua's going to be there, and Tua's actually been playing a lot better this year, or they're going to be seeing a quarterback upgrade, whether it's a Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson type in the offseason. Either way, we can basically peg Jalen Waddle's quarterback stability based on what he's doing to be very safe. Again, I expect that to be the same with Brandon Ayuk because I do think Trey Lance is going to take over. He's going to be good. But at the end of the day here, you're comparing situations and you're comparing talent. I think Jalen Waddle is the more talented player, as much as I like Brandon Ayuk. And Brandon Ayuk is going to be competing with George Kittle and Deebo Samuel for the foreseeable future. Listen, I was completely wrong on Deebo Samuel. He is obviously a key part of that 49ers offense, and we're just going to have to live with that being the limiting factor for Brandon Ayuk's ceiling. In terms of giving up A.J. Dillon as the discrepancy between Waddle and Ayuk, I think that's very fair value. You mentioned early second type of value for Dillon. I think an early second plus a late first type of player gets it to where Jalen Waddle is, who, in my opinion, if he were to get drafted this year in the 2022 draft, he would probably be at minimum a top 3 receiver for me, possibly the wide receiver 1, depending on the landing spots of Burks and Garrett Wilson. So yeah, I don't mind making this move for Jalen Waddle. Obviously, you go from having a wide receiver core that's very depthful, very bountiful, to now having, in my opinion, the clear number one in your wide receiver core with Jalen Waddle added. So I fully agree. This is a stacked team. You got a bunch of picks to be able to really recoup this team, to really build this team. And you still have a top 3 running back core of Akers, Dobbins, and Javonte for next year in 2023. So I fully like this deal. Again, I enjoy talking about these types of deals because at the end of the day here, these are the type of relatable deals you can kind of make in transition in your leagues. You're not always going to have the pure superstars. You're going to be talking about, well, how is a Jalen Waddle going to position me next year on? I think he's the perfect blend. Again, he's going to be 25 years old by the time that you have those 2023 first, whether it's a Bijan Robinson, whether it's a Kayshon Boutte. You have a bunch of players in that draft to be able to contribute to your win now, and Jalen Waddle is still going to be a big part of it. So very long-winded answer from both of us, but we both prefer the Waddle side. We can move on to the next deal, and that's going to be, or next team, and that's going to be from StoneyTavern. You guys can see it on the screen, but the main pieces here, obviously, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Jacobs, Gibson, Edmonds at running back. You guys can also see the depth pieces. AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Cortland Sutton Metcalf, Jasicki Arnold. You got kickers and you got defensive players. So basically you see the whole sum up. He asked current weak spots, a couple trade examples, and a quick roster analysis and next steps. So what are your thoughts when looking at this? This is, by the way, a 2 quarterback, 2 tight end, half PPR scoring league.
Right. So immediately it kind of stands out to me that you have a very strong wide receiver core because you have 3 of my top 6 dynasty wide receivers in Brown, Jefferson, and Metcalf. You also have Pittman, who's obviously seen a big rise this year as well. Again, this looks like a pretty balanced roster in a 2 quarterback league. Again, you have 2 guys. Again, we might have been a little bit, too dismissive of Jalen Hurts. Maybe he has a little bit more job security than we initially anticipated. If that is the case, and that's what Philadelphia believes, then they're well positioned, obviously, to add talent around him, whether it's, another receiver, offensive line, whatever they're going to do to help him. That obviously opens up a lot of possibilities for you. And your running back core, again, you also have Akers, who's on IR right now, coming back at some point to help fill out that running back core. I think you're honestly weak spots. I would say you don't have any glaring weaknesses. I guess tight end would be your biggest weakness, but even still, I think Gesicki has played his way into a contract either with Miami or with another team in free agency. So at the very least, I think you have a trade chip, even if you don't believe in Mike Gesicki. If he signs a $14 million per year deal with the Cardinals or something this offseason, then you could even move that guy. But again, I don't think you have a whole lot of weaknesses. Again, we're not going to speculate on the IDP stuff because we don't play in that. But honestly, I don't think you have anything that stands out to me as a couple trade examples outside of maybe you want to go after a guy like Kyle Pitts.
Or I was about to say here, you have 2 first-round picks. The other weak spot I see is at the quarterback 3 spot with a 2 quarterback starting format, obviously. The main thing I look at here is you have 2 firsts, you have a second-round pick. You can kind of gauge the quarterback market in this offseason, see how many people are high on those rookie quarterbacks, or if you're yourself, say Corral lands on, a team like Washington, a team like Carolina, maybe you're willing to take the plunge on him in the early to mid first if that one of those first presides in that area. But yeah, aside from that, again, running backs maybe on surface, but then obviously you got Cam Akers coming back, and Tony Pollard's obviously been a good contributor when he's worked for Dallas. So I think you're pretty set there. There's not too many glaring weaknesses. I just say use those picks and attack your depth.
Yep, totally agree.
So yeah, on to the next team. That's going to be from JoshyHols, and he's basically saying how he's had an 8-5 spot. He likes his team. He wants to make a push for the championship. He's asking about a particular deal that would net him Brandon Ayuk and Mike Davis in exchange for one of his 4 firsts. You guys can see on the screen. So Corey, looking at this trade, what are your thoughts here? And what similar type of value receiver would you be targeting if not Ayuk?
A lot of Ayuk talk today on this.
Yeah.
On this one. So with Ayuk, I would say if you're looking for a playoff push, to me, Brandon Ayuk doesn't really fit the bill as somebody that I'd be targeting for a playoff push. He more so fits the bill for a 2022, 2023 type of reboot type of team, because I don't think his value right now and what he can provide for you on the field is going to be worth trading for him in a playoff push situation. So if you're looking to dump one of your firsts in order to upgrade your receiving core, and I think you probably should, because you have Chase Claypool and Diggs, but outside of those guys, you don't have a lot of ready-made contributors, and even Chase Claypool hasn't been very consistent himself. So if you're looking for receiving production that can help you win a championship this year, I would be looking to go after a veteran wide receiver. I'd be looking to go after Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, somebody in that age range, probably 26 to 28, that's going to have value beyond this year, but is obviously not as young as a guy like Brandon Ayuk or somebody who can accumulate value going forward. If you're looking to make a championship push, and I think you should, your team is obviously in a ready-made position to compete. You're 8-5. I would go after a guy like Keenan Allen or Mike Evans personally. If you want to go for another young option that can help you compete, there's not a whole lot that's I would say Chase Claypool, but he's already on your team. So that's kind of the tier of wide receiver I'd be looking at. Just Ayuk to me just doesn't really fit the bill for what your needs currently are with your record.
Yeah, for sure. No, I fully agree there. Heck, maybe you could float out an offer for even Terry McLaurin at this point. Somebody might be panic selling because he hasn't been good these last couple of weeks. Getting that, more veteran established wide receiver. Again, you're trying to make that playoff push. You're trying to make that championship push. I think at 8-5, if you can objectively look at your team and say, listen, this is a contender, which validly so, I think that would be the case. You got Josh Allen, you got Stephon Diggs, get the stack there. Najee Harris, Javonte Williams. Like, you have a very, very good team this year that, again, one or two additions at the receiver position could probably put you over the top. So I agree. Again, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, float out offers for those type of guys.
Yeah. Anybody in their prime right now is probably who I'd be looking to trade for.
Yep, exactly. So hopefully that helps you out. Let me just quickly check. There's no other questions here. Perfect. Okay. Veteran wide receiver. There you go.
For sure.
Next team is going to be from Jason. I'll let you take this away.
Yeah, so Jason basically is looking to he said he's going to have the 101 given his current roster construction, and also any other quick tips is much appreciated. So you guys can see his roster right there. It's a 2-quarterback league, half PPR, 10-teamer. His quarterback core obviously looks to be in very good shape with obviously Deshaun Watson on the mend right now, but whenever he comes back, he's going to be a big time contributor. And then he has two young stud quarterbacks in Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Yes, young stud quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Running backs, obviously, those top three guys are going to be a huge time or a big time contributor. And then Elijah Mitchell was obviously a great surprise this year. Wide receivers pretty deep at that position as well. Higgins, DJ Moore, Gallup, and some others. And then TJ Hawkinson at tight end does have the 101 in 2022. He said, what should he be looking to do? What are your thoughts on this? I don't think quarterback is going to be even valuable enough to go as the 101, even in a 2-quarterback league this season, just because I don't think the quarterback class is that good. So to me, I'm looking probably at whichever running back it lands in the best spot or is the best running back by the time we get to through the draft process, or what I'm probably leaning towards is I go Treylon Burks at 101.
I was going to say that, or what I was thinking here is maybe you shop that pick. Say the team that's picking 107, 108 is in dire need of a quarterback or is in dire need of a bell cow running back. You could probably net the 107 plus like 2023 seconds or maybe a 2023 first if someone's desperate enough and move down to the 107, 108. And at that spot, listen, like I love Treylon Burks if he falls. I love Garrett Wilson if he falls. I think this receiver class as a whole is very good. You obviously got those top 3 running backs, and you obviously got even more quarterbacks available that if you don't need yourself, obviously you don't, you could use as trade bait for people that are desperate at the position. I don't mind even for the most part stretching this out to 2023 if you need to, because I feel like this could help you benefit in the long run if you're able to pick up those or those studs for your depth here on this team. Obviously, you got a very, very good foundation, 3 quarterbacks deep, 4 running backs deep. I like your receivers. You just don't have realistically that one alpha of the group, but man, this is a very, very good looking team. If you could spread that 101 into multiple assets and complete building this into a quote unquote dynasty. I know it's in dynasty fantasy football, but I think honestly, if you take the right steps here and project that 101 into multiple assets, you can build this into a juggernaut.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think even if you don't want to go back to like the 107, 108 that like you talked about, the 102, 103 teams might need a bell cow running back. And at that point, Treylon Burks or, whatever the wide receiver one ends up being by the time the trade or the draft process is over, you could just move back 1 or 2 spots just for those guys to come up and get Spiller or Breece Hall or whoever they're valuing. Maybe Matt Corral goes like 3rd overall or something like that. And you could just get Burks at 3, pick up, an extra 2nd round pick. Maybe they throw in another receiver or, a running back or a tight end or something like that. And you could pick up a pick and still get the guy that you probably would have taken at 101 anyway. So I think you're in a great spot. Like Danny mentioned, I think we can move on. All right. So moving on to the next team, we have BigAl's team currently at 8-5. He's asking basically, should he rebuild this team, retool this team? What is the future for it? Is he kind of sitting in purgatory, which is obviously a big time concern for a lot of dynasty players? You want to be able to objectively evaluate your team and say, can I continue going on with this team? Do I have enough draft capital to adequately replace and replenish my roster as I go along? Or am I going to have to tear this thing down basically eventually and rebuild entirely? And he's saying, is this just an off year because he's 8-5, which with what I consider would probably be a better than 8-5 roster. So what are your thoughts initially when looking at this team? Because it is I believe it is a super flex league. He has Aaron Rodgers and Justin Herbert, obviously pretty strong quarterback core there. Running backs, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, and some other contributors. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf. Again, my first glance at this roster is that it's very top heavy. I think that's
I
probably
was just
a
about
big
to say that.
takeaway for you. He basically wants to know, is this a rebuild or a retool? At this point in the season, you're 8-5. I'm going for the championship. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way I'm trying to rebuild this now. But going into the offseason, you might have some tough decisions to make.
Yeah, like now, again, if you want to take it in the offseason and say, okay, listen, I can go from, we'll say DK Metcalf, for example, is a prime example for me. If you can turn DK Metcalf into Jalen Waddle, 2023 first and a mid to high 2022 second, that'd be a move I'd be looking to make. Just basically replenishing your assets for other quality players, particularly at the wide receiver position, as well as picks. Because again, I think this is a very, very good team, but the problem with it is that it's so top heavy to the point where if you sustain injuries, if you have depth or buys, you can't really adjust because at the end of the day here, say DK Metcalf's on bye, and Julio Jones is hurt, for example, are you putting, I don't know, Khalif Raymond into your flex, T.Y. Hilton into your flex, Amir Smith-Marset into your flex? Though that's the position where I kind of got stuck in Scott's thoughts, where my team was so good at the top that it costed me my depth. And then when you have those injuries hit, when you have those bye weeks hit, you simply don't have the adequate players to be able to balance out your roster. So this is a team to me, again, I'm in a similar situation as I mentioned in Scott's thoughts, where you have to objectively look at yourself and say, listen, do I have the adequate depth to be able to compete? I think this team, when fully healthy, yes, is probably the best team in your league. But this is a team, again, I'm looking to not depreciate my assets, to send my asset from a very, very, very good one, a very, very elite one, to maybe a very good one and picks to kind of balance it out. Again, Jalen Waddle, a first and a second would be a prime move. I'd be looking for like DK Metcalf.
Yeah, it's also really tough because you don't have any high draft capital in the next 2 drafts, which is obviously you have some aging players like Adams, like Rodgers, and some of the other guys that you have. Most of your receiver depth, at least your immediate receiver depth, is older, like Julio Jones and Brandon Cooks. So you're going to be in a tough situation. I would say next year, this might be a team that I'm still rolling with, seeing if I can maybe do what Danny said, downgrade from a Devontae Adams to DK Metcalf, something like that, and pick up. If you can take Aaron Rodgers and turn it into Zach Wilson in a first round pick or something like that.
You could probably do that.
Yeah, like I would try and do something like that and give yourself a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more longevity in case you're going to have to obviously take in some more risk with a move like that, because obviously Zach Wilson could never reach the level of production that Aaron Rodgers has reached in his career. But you're going to have to take on some kind of risk to adequately replace some of the depth that you have, because there's a good chance if you just let this go and try and compete, that come 2023, DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris are the only guys on your roster worth a damn.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, the tough part with Dynasty sometimes is when you're holding players with such high ceiling, such high value initially, you're in a spot where if you have an instance, for example, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams type of player, if you have an instance where there's going to be a thing that could severely impact their value, talking about McCaffrey in terms of his injury woes, talking about Devontae Adams in terms of an unclear future, you kind of have to scrap your losses there at that point, in my opinion. Because if you're looking to move on, if you know you're not in position to succeed, again, there's certain situations like Derrick Henry, Devontae Adams, where you want to ride them off into a sunset if you're the top team in your league, if you're a top 2 team in your league. But if you can't say that you can last an injury to one player, then I think it's time to objectively say, listen, my losses, cut them, move on, downgrade from Devontae Adams or DK Metcalf again into a very good player plus picks. That's a good transition period, in my opinion.
Yep. Don't disagree there. I think you got to ride this out to the rest of the season, hope that you can make it through your playoffs healthy. And obviously that hasn't happened already because your second best running back is currently hurt, DeAndre Swift, and his backup, who you have, is also on the COVID list. So this week you're going to have to start Nyheim Hines and Devontae Freeman and stuff. Yeah. So I think you're already kind of dealing with the repercussions of the way that you've built this team. So let's move on to Bryan's team. Another one that we have to get in here. Currently, you guys can see it on the screen. The guys that are in bold are starters. You can also see the picks there. He has what projects to be about a mid-first round pick in 2022. Also a second late first round pick in 2022. And then it looks like he has a couple mid-round picks as well this year. And then no first by the looks of it in 2023. So he made a trade in season. And obviously this kind of hasn't aged the greatest, he said, in his message because Alexander Mattison is now being thrusted into a bigger role. And when he sent this, that was definitely the case. Obviously, Dalvin Cook has since posted a 35-point fantasy game on Thursday night, but he traded away Melvin Gordon, or traded for, Melvin Gordon and a 2023 fourth, traded away Alexander Mattison, Cole Beasley, and a 2023 fifth rounder. And I guess looking at his team, I understand why he made the move at the time. Elijah Mitchell was the only startable running back on his team. He was dealing with Jamal Williams, Devin Singletary as his other guys. In the position that his team is in, though, I think this was an ill-advised move. This was a move that you're looking to compete when your winning window probably wasn't open, is what I'm thinking is what you did with this move.
Yep. No, and I agree there. Again, this is a very good foundation of a team here, but the problem is you just don't simply have the quote unquote difference makers available to you right now. You don't have, again, a Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, some of those obviously elite running backs. So this is a very solid foundational start to your team. Again, the next part of this question is going to say, can I compete in 2022? I would say 2023. I mean, you have those two first. I would say once Elijah Mitchell gets into his zone, once obviously those wide receivers get into their prime, you could potentially compete. The main thing here that I'm looking at, though, is obviously you got that Mahomes Kelsey stack. It's tough to get off of that, but if somebody's still very, very, very high on Kelsey, maybe you can net a package of picks and fully rebuild this team. Because again, your running back situation outside of Mitchell is very, very scary to me in terms of longevity, in terms of potential high ceiling production. I just don't really see it for you to compete in 2022 unless you, again, ship a Kelsey for picks and draft accordingly, build out your depth, because you got the receiver core that's to die for. You got the quarterback core that's to die for. And obviously you got Goddard, who's a very good tight end off the bench. It's just the main weakness here is obviously at running back.
Yeah, and I think we say this all the time too. The quickest way to know if you're in a winning window or a rebuilding window is to look at the state of your quarterback and running back in Superflex. And you have obviously a very win now quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, but your other quarterbacks are rookies, Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance. And your best running back is a rookie. So your wide receiver core, yes, they're also very young and they're probably borderline in their primes already, especially with Lamb and AJ Brown and Chase. But those guys are super young. They're going to be valuable for the next 2, 3, 5, 7 years going forward.
10
so
years,
what I'd be looking to do, exactly what Danny said, is offload the Mahomes and Kelsey stack. It's just kind of out of place with with the situation of your roster right now. Because if you had sent us this team with Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance as your quarterbacks, the running backs that you have, wide receivers that you have, and tight ends that you have exactly the same, except without Kelsey and Mahomes, and you add in an extra 3 first-round picks, then you're in a much better situation, right? And you could probably net, 3 ones for Mahomes alone.
I was about to say, you could probably, honestly, you mentioned Mahomes is easily the 101, I think, in terms of Dynasty super flex value right now. If you were to offload Mahomes and Kelsey, you could probably net a package of, 3, 4 first round picks, maybe a guy like Jalen Waddle, maybe a couple second rounders. You could fully put a bomb on your league theoretically here and start that rebuild and start that 2022, 2023 contender. Because listen, if you were to take Mahomes and Kelsey, turn those into, 3 first, Jalen
Travis
Waddle,
Etienne and Jalen Waddle or something like that.
You would be in an absolute prime spot. Again, losing Mahomes is the biggest blow here because I think Kelsey's a god. Don't get me wrong, but you have Goddard there. But again, you still have Lawrence and Lance. We think those guys are going to be fancy superstars come 2022, 2023, at least for Lawrence's sake, as long as Urban Meyer's not in the fold, basically. So, this is again, this is a very, very good start. A couple transitions mentioning Kelsey and Mahomes. You're going to be able to turn this into a juggernaut. And
this is the patient situation, though, because he does ask, should I be in position to go get, Spiller, Hall, try and reboot this thing and really get it off the ground? Maybe, but I think it's you're jumping the gun a little bit if you try to. So what I would do is let the board fall to you. 104 to 106 is your first pick. 108, 109 is your second pick. Maybe you can make moves. Maybe you can trade back. Maybe you can collect picks in 2023, whatever you have to do. If you don't have to, just pick the best player on the board, like always. And like Danny said, and like we've kind of hammered home, try and move the Kansas City Chiefs stack, because it's at peak value right now for at what it's probably highest point going to be. Maybe not Mahomes, obviously, because he's still a young quarterback, but Kelsey, you have to get out of Kelsey at some point, because the winning window that you're currently in, even if you drafted a Spiller and he was a superstar from the very beginning, it would still be tough for you to compete with the running back depth that you currently have. So I think be patient, build out your running back and quarterback core, and let those young wide receivers carry you for the next couple of years, and try and rebuild the team into 2023 when you should be able to compete.
Yeah, and one last thing with Kelsey, he is a very, very scary asset to hold in Dynasty because, again, obviously when he's on the field, he's arguably a top 2 tight end all the time. I think still Gronk probably has the edge on him if you were to compare impact, but either way, he's a stud. He's getting thrown to by Mahomes. The problem is, again, he's a 32-year-old tight end. If he shows at all any type of decline, any type of regression, he's gone from a top 2 value tight end in Dynasty to the tight end 7.
Look at Julio Jones. Perfect example is Julio Jones, right? A couple hamstring injuries is all it takes for Travis Kelce to tank in value. That's literally all it takes. It doesn't even have to be an ACL tear or something. All he has to do is suffer a mild hamstring strain and be out 6 weeks, and suddenly everybody's spooked off of Travis Kelce. So, like I said, go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned hamstring because, I mean, we're seeing literally the same thing with the undisputed top 2 pick 2 years ago with Christian McCaffrey.
And Michael Thomas, too.
I've seen people in redraft that literally rank McCaffrey like RB6, like, what are we doing here? Like, I get it. Like, injuries fucking stink and it's going to affect value. But at the end of the day here, like, what are we doing as a community? But either way,
it will definitely be interesting to talk to Edwin in the offseason and what his kind of take on the injury prone tag that's been thrown on Christian McCaffrey now. So before we make this video too long, let's get into the final team of the video, which is Corg's team. He basically has a kind of a similar situation to what we talked about a couple teams ago. A lot of older players. Should he rebuild after this year is basically what his question is. As you guys can see his roster right now, he has 2 quarterbacks that are in their 30s. He has, some wide receivers that are all, 25 to 28 in that age range. And then also most of his depth is old too with Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton, Jarvis Landry. Nobody on his team, especially in wide receiver, is under the age of 25. And then at running back, he has Fournette, Montgomery, Eckler, who are all, in that 24 to 27 range as well. And then his tight end is Kelce. So he has all of his picks in 2023, all of his picks in 2024. He doesn't list his 2022 picks. I'm assuming he doesn't have any. If that's why. This is to me, you're at a point right now where I'm almost just riding this until the wheels fall off. And you're going to blow this up eventually, whether it's in 2022, 2023. Maybe you can get this team competing until 2024. I think this is a ride it until the wheels fall off because there's no point for me in taking a guy like Keenan Allen, who's producing at a high level right now, and trying to downgrade and increase your longevity because the rest of your team is just completely in sync with a win now mentality. This looks like a redraft team, right? Yeah. And anytime you look like a redraft team, you might as well just try and win as often as you can. And then if, shit happens and Keenan Allen retires 2 years from now and a bunch of like these guys, Hopkins and Marvin Jones and all these guys are like out of the league, then at that point you blow it up, you sell whatever remaining assets have value, and you collect picks and things like that. That's probably what I'm looking to do if I'm in this current situation.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, again, this is a team that I would ride off into the sunset because, unfortunately, for a lot of these players, we talk about their selling window, and the majority of them have passed. And, again, this isn't a situation like last team where you have a Goddard on the bench and you're more of a young-looking team where I would say sell Kelce. Listen, this is a team where you have to hold Kelce because you got Fournette, Montgomery, Eckler, Carson when he's healthy at running back, Allen, Thomas, Evans, Hopkins receiver. You got a couple good quarterbacks. Like, this is a very, very good built all-around team that I'd be shocked if you're not a top 3 team in your league, honestly. Like, I would need to see the other teams in your league, but if this is not a top 3 team in your league, then something happened to the point where you either got completely elite teams at the top and absolute dog crap at the bottom of your league. Either way, this team is fantastic. And
on-field production is fantastic. Value in Dynasty, not so much. On-field production, this team is probably the best in the league. I'm guessing every week when you look at the projections, you're at the highest level because you have Keenan Allen and Mike Evans and all these guys that get a lot of targets and they're in great offenses and stuff. So yeah, bottom line is you got to ride this one off into the sunset. To me, there's no point this offseason in trying to sell DeAndre Hopkins and get a young wide receiver because it just doesn't fit the MO of your team. Maybe you want to, if somebody's really high on one of your players, you want to try and do that, collect some picks for the 2023 and 2024 drafts. That would be something I would look to do because you're going to be blowing up your team at that point in time. And you could use the extra picks now while they have no value virtually for a lot of people. If you can sell Hopkins for a 2024 first and a young wide receiver, then somebody might, who also is in a winning window, just be like, oh, 2024 first. I don't give a shit about that. Take it. Like, and at that point, you're going to be blowing your team up and it's going to be very valuable to you.
Yeah, and again, the quickest thing I would always say, or I always think, I think we agree here, Corey, too, is that if you're in a league where everybody's super, super competitive, everybody's super, super in it, super, super sticky and trying to compete, looking at firsts, looking at seconds that are a couple years down the line are always going to be your best bet. Because if you're saying, oh yeah, give me your 2022 first or even your 2023 first, people might be hesitant with saying, oh, what if I need one of these assets to make a push in the next couple of years? But if you throw out a 2024 first, again, not a lot of people know about Travion Henderson. Not a lot of people know about Donovan Edwards. Not a lot of people know about Xavier Worthy. Like, there are a ton of young players that are going to completely appreciate in value over these next couple of years that you're going to be getting for a dime on the dollar, basically, in most casual leagues. So either way, I like that. Again, ride this off for the next couple of years. But if you notice next year people are falling, you have an escape plan, whatever. The picks I'd be looking to acquire would be 2024, 2025, if your league allows that.
Yeah, because again, you want to align your goals in Dynasty with what your team is kind of set up to do. Your goals in Dynasty right now have to be to win because your team is set up to win. But if opportunities present itself where you can load up for that eventual rebuilding window that you're going to have to make at some point, there's no way you can ride this team and just rebuild it naturally, in my opinion, just because everybody's primes are kind of aligned currently right now. So come 2024, half of these players might be retiring or regressing or whatever the case is. So at that point, you're going to have to rebuild it. And if you look and you're like, oh, remember that trade I made 3 years ago for DeAndre Hopkins that netted me 2024 first or something like that? That was a great trade to make because now I can reboot my rebuild and get it on track. So if you guys did enjoy that video, again, Dynasty Decisions is a signature series of ours, often imitated but never duplicated. If you guys enjoyed the video, enjoyed the channel, subscribe. Please, it costs nothing for you, and it helps us out tremendously. It helps us grow, helps more people on YouTube see what we're doing over here at FSE. Like the video, comment any of your thoughts down below as well. And if you guys want access to our weekly rankings, it's currently Saturday. As we're recording this right now, we're getting into prime playoff season for the fantasy playoffs. Our rankings are free in the description right now if you want to check those out. Speaking of playoffs, too, you can head on over to underdogfantasy.com, deposit using promo code FSE. That'll get you access and 100% sign-up bonus for the site. So if you deposit $25 using our promo code, you'll get $50 on top of the site or on the site to use in their underdog playoff best ball, basically, that they have going right now, which is a fun contest that we've both participated in so far. So if you're interested in something like that, you can check that out. Peace out, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Enjoy your Saturday.